Hi there, my name's Eddie, my pronouns are he, him, and I'm the Wolfsbane Witch. And today is day 11 of Ivy the Occultist 12 Days of Yule Challenge. But I'm kind of lying to you because I'm actually recording this on the night of December 30th, and that's because the spell I'm doing tonight is going to be linked to the spell that I posted earlier today. This is a spell that's linked to my self-care routine and me keeping track of routines. You see, I'm a neurodivergent witch, as well as a few other things that I might touch on later on, and because I have ADHD as my neurodivergency, I have executive dysfunction and time blindness, and so sometimes keeping track of time or tasks or dates is very difficult for me. So I'm using my magic to help invigorate me and keep me on task and focused, and also give me the patience to be able to deal with things in a timely manner and not to try to rush through things the way that I like to if things are not necessarily going my way or if things are going a little bit too slow for my personal liking at the time. Because let's face it, keeping track of things like a notebook or a grimoire is kind of a taxing and pressure-filled process, even if you're not a neurotypical witch. So this is kind of my way of incorporating that into my self-care routine and incorporating ways of note-keeping and keeping track of time, especially when I deal with executive dysfunction and time blindness. So this is going to help me keep track of that in a more magical way and keep me grounded both to the seasons and to myself and to time itself, so I can keep track of my life better and keep track of the progress of my life's goals that I'm having set for 2024. I find that because of my ADHD, things that other neurotypical witches find really easy or part of their practice that they couldn't live without, like keeping notes and grimoires, is just something that is not necessarily obtainable for me. So I've had to use different creative ways to work around that, and part of what I'm doing tonight is incorporating what I've done to work around that using the Llewellyn's Witch's Calendar. Unlike a journal or a notebook that is specifically designated to just write in, I find that having a calendar helps me keep track of time while also giving me a built-in way of keeping notes on specific dates where things happen, so I can keep track of my rituals, my spells, my moods, and other things a little bit easier, and it's all compacted into one spot, so I don't have the pressure of organizing or keeping track of all these different things to write down in, and having to know which one I've written which in. It becomes really overwhelming and can overwhelm my senses and lead to burnout really quickly when I do something like that. So I find that having it all in one very small and compact spot helps trigger my memories enough that I can write it down somewhere else at a later date if I wish to. So here's about the time where I cut to the ritual space and show you what I'm going to be doing for this spell. This spell can be used for people without ADHD as a way to keep them focused on a specific project or task or item. Let's say if you are an artist and you are procrastinating a bit on doing your artwork, you could use this on your art tools or your paint palettes or your canvases to help keep you focused on that thing. It's just to help keep your attention towards something in a self-care sort of way. So it's not an obsession spell. This is not a spell that's going to fixate you on something. It's a spell that's going to draw your attention towards something in a constructive, healthy, and growth-centered way. With that being said, I think it's time to walk you through my working and what I have laid out here. So the main component of this working for me is going to be my Llewellyn's Witch's Calendar. This is the calendar that I'm going to be using for note-keeping, for keeping track of time, and this is what I mainly want my attention to be focused on. So this is what I'm going to be centering this ritual upon, and that's why it's placed in the center. I'm going to be doing my working on top of this later on, but for now it's just sitting here in the center. Along the front I have my wand. My wand actually has a name. His name is Solaris, and I call him he because he has a spirit within him. I'm not sure if he's necessarily the spirit of the tree or not. It's never become quite clear to me what it is, but I do know he has a name, and he is one of my main tools and allies as a magical practitioner. To the left side of the altar, I have my Hecate statue / candle holder. On the top, I have some offerings and a ring that is connected to my familiar that I showed in one of my previous videos. I'll be wearing this ring later on in the ritual, but for now it is charging over by my Hecate side of the altar. On the bottom of the left side of the altar, below the Hecate statue, I have a couple of spell jars that are related to self-care, self-protection, self-love. One of them is made by myself, and one of them is made by my significant other. Underneath those two jars, I have this image that I associate with myself. This is an image that is done by Atomic Gothic. They have an Etsy store. I've bought from them before. I'll be linking their Etsy shop in the description below if you'd like to check them out. Below that image, I have my trans and LGBTQ+ pride bracelet that one of my friends made me quite a while ago. I really love this bracelet. And because this is the part of my altar space that I'm putting my self-identity and personal self-empowerment things, I decided to put it here. Next to my pride bracelet, there is the green candle that I'm going to be using as the main candle for this working. I chose the color green because I often associate it with myself, but I also associate it with personal, transformational growth and healing. So I don't necessarily associate it with physical healing, but more healing of the mind, expansion of boundaries, and healing of the inner self. I'm not going to be using these bracelets within this magic, but I have them here to charge within the energy of self-love and self-empowerment because I feel like it's an easy way to help charge them without specifically taking the time to charge each thing individually. And that reminds me, this is another little ADHD hack that I do. Instead of charging everything that I have individually, if I'm doing a working that pertains to a certain theme that I think a item that I have or some crystals that I have would benefit from charging near, I will put it on the altar space as I do the working, and therefore it is being imbued by that magic. And I can also incorporate it later on into other spells and things like that. So a lot of my spells are connected to each other and compound on top of each other in a sort of ever-growing, ever-strengthening way. And that's why you'll see over on this side as well my fiery ball of energy spray that I'm going to be using in this ritual as well. And that's just another way that I combine different things that I've made into a useful and practical part of my practice. When I first started doing witchcraft, I would just make all of these different things but not really have a way to connect them with each other or connect them to a specific tangible goal. And that's why a lot of the things that I did when I first started out didn't really manifest. It's because my energy was splayed out in so many different ways and I didn't really connect them in any sort of directed path. And maintaining a directed path is exactly what my goal is for a spell like this, and that's also what these other things here are supposed to do. So here I have some rosemary hand cream that one of my witchy friends made me, and here I also have some sandalwood and patchouli scented oil that I'm going to be putting onto my hands before I do the working with the candle. And with that, it's time to move to the right side of my working altar space. I have some of the crystals and my witch's rune that I used in my previous video, and I have a tourmalinated quartz bracelet that I use to amplify my magical energy during magical workings, as well as to protect me during magical workings and during my work days. I'll typically wear this when I go to work. I have an incense stick that is also resting on top of my bracelet, and I'm going to be using this incense stick as a tool later on in this ritual to kind of show you a little witchy life hack that I learned recently, and I thought would be really cool to share with you. It's not ADHD specific, but it's definitely ADHD friendly. Behind these two things, I have the coyote spirit that I work with, and I also have this that I use to symbolize Pan. It is an image of Pan on a jar that I have little offerings and things that I associate with him in. On top of that, I just have an obsidian spear that I use occasionally for scrying, but mostly for protection. And then finally, the last two things I'm going to be using is my blue candle that I have shown off in a couple other videos, and actually in the lid of this blue candle, I'm going to be doing my main working. So inside the lid of this blue candle, I just have a couple different things. I'll put on the screen the ingredients that I put around it. Some of it is leftover from the things that I did earlier, so some of the powder ingredients will not be put in this video because that'd be a very long list. So definitely check out the video I put before. I'll put a link to that in the description of this video if you'd like. Now that you have an idea of what's going on in the space around my ritual, let's dive into what I actually did. The first thing I did in this ritual was anoint my hands, and I did this by using the rosemary hand cream as well as the sandalwood and patchouli oil. I'm going to be drawing runes onto my spell candle for this ritual, so I also put the two runes I'm going to be combining into a bind rune onto my hands. I'm doing them individually, so I'll be doing one on each hand. After that, I spray my fiery ball of energy spray, and this is to anoint the space and to set the tone for the ritual. After that has been done, I am going to then draw the bind rune onto the working candle. And I'm doing this using one of the hacks that I mentioned before. This is how I'm doing it, but you can use different tools to do it. So what I'm doing is I'm taking the end of this incense stick and I'm dabbing it into the melted wax of the blue candle. As I dab it into the wax of the blue candle, it's going to accumulate on the end of the incense stick, and then I can apply it like a paintbrush with paint onto the candle that I'm using for my working. This is an easy way to add sigils onto your candle that aren't permanent. Because the wax is a malleable substance and it's in the middle of drying, you can easily scrape it off and change it if you don't like the sigil you're making. After I make the bind rune and have imbued my energy into it during that process of making it, I'm going to stick it onto the lid that I have the herbs on, and then I'm going to place it on top of the calendar to hone in on the calendar as my main focus for this working. And that's about it for the ritual. I know that was a lot of build-up and a lot of time I spent showing what's going on in this space, but the ritual itself is really simple. It's just a bind rune on some candles made in different wax. It's mostly the intention that matters, and the things around it, in my opinion, are what add to the intention and the space that I'm creating. Thank you so much for watching this video if you watched this far. If you've subscribed already, thank you so much for subscribing. If you haven't but you'd like to, definitely do that. I'm going to be posting more videos after this challenge is over. And thank you so much to Ivy for making this 12 Days of Yule tag. It's been so much fun so far, and I'm sad to see it wrapping up, but I'm happy that there might be an opportunity to do something like this in the future with other tags, and if that's the case, then I'll see you in those ones.